Hey everybody, just thought that we'd go through and do a quick sprint watch since they've dropped the next level here. So I was expecting this to be a really short one. It seemed like 2 weeks ago, they kind of had their quarterly review and did their usual sort of reassessment of their sprints, sort of added time or in a couple instances even subtracted time. So I thought that this week would just kind of be this move forward, this move forward, this move forward, and I'd be done. They added a bunch of stuff. Not a bunch of tasks, but they added a bunch of weeks to a bunch of things. So we'll go through those changes a little bit here. So first, let's go ahead and get the caveats out of the way, kind of describe what this is. First off, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and like and subscribe if you kind of like this presentation. If you don't, let me know down in the comments and might be able to change it up if you think it's too long or too short. If you want me to dive into something, I've actually created special shows just based on people's little recommendations on wanting to hear about stuff. So with that out of the way, caveats, this is the roadmap roundup. I go through and I do the Sprintwatch, which is looking at the progress tracker. Most people look at the release view, which is this, and just kind of go into kind of conjecture about what will make it in and what won't. I kind of like to do a little bit deeper dive, or shallow dive in this case, since they haven't released the new patch yet. And just kind of talk about what's coming in, what's being worked on, how long it is, and basically what its purpose is in the verse, just to a small degree. For the quick caveats, these are tracking sprints, which CIG uses the Agile Development System, which means that they're just a team will get a project and they're supposed to work on it for a set amount of time, and that's a sprint. And then at the end of that time, they'll actually go in and reassess, and they'll say, okay, we need this team to come in, or this team to come in, or we need more time, or we're good, we're done, or we're not going to be able to work on this for another couple months because we're working on this other thing, so we're going to put everything on hold. That's what sprints are. So the end point of that is just because something is 100% complete and you see me say it's wrapped, doesn't mean it's finished until they actually put it in here and they say it's done. And even in some cases there, it still doesn't mean it's done. But we'll get to those. So that's the caveat, is just because something is 100% finished does not mean that's actually imminently dropping into the game. So CIG says that, I say that, we're all on the same page with that. So let's go ahead and get into this. I'll go ahead and I'll put timestamps in the down below parts. So that was the intro. This is going to be the roadmap roundup. Then we'll talk about the release view real quick, and then we'll kind of do the shallow dive on what changed on the progress tracker. So let's go ahead and get into this. I actually pre-read this. Sometimes they sneak stuff into this top part. They didn't this time. This time it's pretty short. So other people kind of do the read through on this. So I generally just read directly what's there. This time, as you can see, there's not a lot. Notable changes for September 28th, 2022. Release view. The following cards have passed their final review for Alpha 3.18. Therefore, we are changing their status to committed. Daymar Crash Site. A derelict settlement on Daymar using parts of the Star Runner and 600i, as well as some HABs adapted to the biome, to create a point of interest with some type of activity. Puzzle traversal, hostile AI, missions, etc., as well as rewards for completion. That one's going to be kind of cool. I really, really hope that they make it a trade location, but I don't think we're going to get that until the AI is clicking along, and I don't think we're getting that until server mission comes in and Quantum really kicks on, so probably not. Grey Cat PTV Racetrack. This is kind of their little Mario Kart version. Totally IP protected. Implementing a racetrack on the Orison Vision Center on Crusader in the same location as the most recent Invictus launch week. It's its own platform. Designed for the Grey Cat PTV. There you go. That's it for the notable changes. So they just shifted This and this over to committed. They've been done for a little while, so not shocking. New Rivers and Stanton, I'm kind of surprised that one hasn't come over. Sand Cave. If I had to guess why this one hasn't moved over to committed, it might be because they're trying to implement the rock bug, which is the isopod, which would be our first animal NPC in the verse, which would be really, really cool. That is pure conjecture on my part, though. These are mostly complete. We've been watching updates on Inside Starses and ISC for the last few months, and I just noticed that this is mirrored. That's backwards. Anyways, I get sidetracked. Great Rat PTV racetrack. I'm definitely going to spend some time there. That I was a huge fan of Mario Kart back in college because I'm old. Shut up. Let's go on. Gameplay. So cargo system refactor. So I've said for a while now that the must-haves for 318 won't drop with these three features. Cargo system refactor is one, salvage is the other, and PES, persistent entity streaming, which is down here in Cortec, is the last. So they will not drop this patch until those three things are at least somewhat working. So you got cargo system refactor, sandbox prison activities. That one's looks like it's been done for a little bit, so that should be okay. Security post-career reactivation. I think that one just wrapped, so it's good to go. It's tentative here, but it's going to make it. New missions on Orison, so they're basically going to take the platforms that they used for Siege of Orison and use them for other missions. Like you can go there and do other stuff, which is kind of interesting. What they were thinking of doing, or I think what they said was they're going to take those platforms and actually scatter them across Crusader, which Crusader badly needs more locations on it. It's like ArcCorp, where you can really only go to Area 18. You've got this entire planet, but you can only go to one spot. Even worse than that, at least you can land on top of buildings in ArcCorp. Salvage hull stripping, so that's the other feature that I think that they're not going to release 318 until salvage tier 0 is in. Thankfully, it's well along its way. Ships and vehicles, we got the Drake Vulture and the Drake Corsair. Drake Corsair was a new ad as of 2 weeks ago. Looks like it's coming along smoothly. We'll get to that in a bit. Atoms, or weapons and items, Grey Cat multi-tool, salvage attachments. This is the little handgun. I think they're also going to sneak in the industrial sized one. That's like, basically, I keep saying it's bazooka sized. It's like large rifle sized. They've shown it off in a couple ISCs without mentioning it, like it's sitting on the back. It's been done on the progress tracker for a while now. Now, whether they have to do more work with it or not, who knows? So again, that's just conjecture on my part, but we're at least getting the hand tool. So that concludes the release view. We still don't know what's going to be in 319. So my bet for 319, it's not going to be quarter 4. There's no way they're releasing it for quarter 4. I wouldn't think. I would expect them to release 318 to wide PTU mid to late November. They said they're going to drop it this year, and I'm kind of hoping they just keep it in the PTU unless it's really looking good and it's really stable. But persistent AE streaming is going to break a lot. It literally touches every single aspect of this game. So 318 is going to be dropping near the end of the year. I just don't see how they're going to be able to squeeze anything in there. And there's a lot of really interesting things that are going to be wrapping around March of next year. And if 4.0 is going to be dropping somewhere, I'm guessing between June and September, October of next year, 319 would be a good one to kind of stuff into March. So that's kind of my bet on that one, that 319 is going to come quarter 1 of next year. Maybe quarter 1.5. We'll see what they do. So let's go ahead and jump on over to the progress tracker. So I got a bunch of notes here. I'll try to move fast through these just because this is already going to be a long one. So let's scroll on down. So AI commuter, that one's wrapping at the end of this week. A lot of AI things for Squadron 42 and the PU are wrapping this week. I kind of have this running theory that CIG is going to kind of use December as a go, no go to beta for Squadron 42. So beta is when a program, or at least the definition that I'm using, it's when the program is feature complete, but still needs to be polished. So you might have tier 1 of salvage where you can take off the outside armor, but you don't have it all the way up to being able to completely disassemble the ship like you did in Shipbreaker. But the feature is in, it just needs to be expanded upon. That's where beta is. And that's where I think that they're going to be kind of saying, we can release this game in 2 years or 2.5 years or 3 years or whatever. We're good. No more features after this point. Now we start polishing. Polishing for this game will take a long time. Chris Roberts is understandably very nervous about launching Squadron and having something like Cyberpunk happen to him, which Cyberpunk is doing great now. Rough start. Anyways, that's my segue for that minute of time. Let's go. So AI commuter. We got AI untrained combat wrapped about a week ago. AI usable systems wrapped. AI utility is wrapping. Vehicle perception, that's the one where AI can actually see to and from vehicles, which is big. I think now they'll mostly ignore you if you're in a vehicle, but this will mean they can actually attack you. The AI utility is only for Squadron 42. I would assume it's also... I am just guessing that one also is going to go to the PU pretty quick here. All the other ones are PU. Usable system is PU only. But again, bunch of AI things are wrapping up now. So provided the servers can keep up, which has always kind of been the sticking point for the NPCs in the game, could be getting something cool here. Soon. All right, so those are the AI things. Let's see. Next thing was the Anvil Crucible. Work hasn't started yet. 20 weeks, going to be way more than that, but this is just the concept team. Starting next week, they're going to start work on the Crucible. Crucible is an old ship, basically used for repair, primarily repair and retrofitting and things like that. Going to be huge and very useful to have if you have any fleets. Like if you're a pirate fleet, you're going to want a Crucible in your fleet because you're not going to be able to land at very many places, and with the Anvil Crucible you don't really have to. Anyway, work on the reconcept starts next week. That's an old ship, so it's kind of cool to see it come back on the radar. Speaking of radar, get to that in a bit. So Arena Commander Classic Race Mode Overhaul. So this is not the PTV racetrack. This is Arena Commander Race Mode. And it looks like it's wrapping right now, which is kind of cool. So they might sneak that one in. They're adding in the Snake Pit, which is on Lyra, I think. Lyria? I think. It's on one of the moons of Microtech, is basically this on-ground racetrack. All these other ones are kind of floating up above. But they're going to completely overhaul the entire mode. So that could be kind of a precursor to bringing racing into the verse, because there actually is a racetrack around Grim Hex. So this might be step one to that. Again, no confirmation on that, but we'll see. Argo SRV. So this one is, let's see, they added 5 weeks to it. There's no downstreams in it yet, so this date out here, Q1, that's going to stretch out. Expect that to be probably June of next year. They're probably going to aim to release it with a 4.0 patch. Argo SRV is the tugboat. It's got big tractor beams on it. Artificial gravity will be huge for engineering gameplay, which I think is going to be... I'm thinking that's what 3.19 is going to be, is kind of tier 0 of the engineering gameplay. Artificial gravity won't make it in for that cut if that's what they're planning on. It runs 39 weeks, and it's not going to be done as far as this sprint is concerned until the end of Q2. That's going to stretch out. Artificial gravity is going to be... I don't know how complicated it would be to turn gravity on and off, but I assume all of the entities would have to be able to react to it in both gain and lose physics. Don't know. Asteroid facilities, this is one that I'm kind of excited about. They added 27 weeks to the sprint, so it went from being about roughly half a year to a full year sprint. So now it's not wrapping until sometime next year. They say Q2 2023. I'm guessing what they're going to do is drop that into 4.0. So they figured they have more time for 4.0. They're kind of eyeballing June or September or whatever of next year for 4.0. They're all like, let's just take this, polish it, and explore it. So that's what Sprint does. They stretch it out for another 27 weeks. So the next one is one of my favorites. It's the Banu Merchantman, 128 weeks. That hasn't changed for a little while. We are 70% of the way through. Again, they added a few more, I think 20 more weeks to it a while back, but you can sort of see that it's so far out. Again, downstream teams are going to get involved again once they kind of finish off this sprint, just kind of building out the insides. Q2, this thing isn't dropping until, I would guess, probably the Intergalactic Aerospace Tour next year, which is November of next year, would be my guess. They might drop it at SitCon, which is traditionally October-ish. Well, next weekend this year, but around the beginning of October is SitCon. Somewhere in that window. It'll either be SitCon or IAE of next year. So Q3, 3.5 next year. Banu Merchantman. Just need to wait on it. Bounty Hunter V2, they added 12 weeks to this, which I was kind of thinking that this one might sneak into a 3.19 release. That would be sort of a soft engineering bounty hunting patch. It does make sense to release bounty hunting with Pyro, because obviously you're going to have a lot of criminals out there. But with that stretch out, it's starting to hit the end of Q2, so that's sort of beyond my window for 3.18. It's going to be a 3.19 rather. It's going to be a 4.0 drop. Building interiors, another really cool one, but just kind of cruising along. They haven't added any time to it. It's just kind of plugging away. Again, this is going to be probably a 3.19 drop. So Q1 of next year. Cargo system refactor. They're saying release 3.18. Again, this is a big ticket item for 3.18. They're not going to drop 3.18 until they can drop cargo refactor, would be my guess. Wrapping in a couple weeks, near the end of the year. They will probably release it to us, even if that sprint isn't completed. And then they'll just kind of keep polishing it as we tell them, this is broken, why don't you guys do it this way instead of that way. So cargo refactor is something they're going to be iterating on for a while. Cave archetypes, let's see, why did I have this one pulled up? Okay, so this one, they added 27 weeks, so they added about half a year to it. I think it was wrapping around the end of the year. I was thinking maybe it might sneak into 3.19. There's no way. Now it's dropping in 4.0. Unless 3.19 is like a June of next year patch, which I'd be very surprised. Just a quick comment about Squadron 42, which is all these chapters. All of them are wrapping this week. Now, just to kind of reiterate the point on sprints, these have wrapped several times. So just because they're 100% complete does not mean they're not going to go back in and do polishing. They almost certainly are. But for right now, I think they're kind of hitting their go, no go. Are we going to add any more story elements to this? Are these mechanics working? Not are they working bug-free and perfectly well, just can we kind of do like a quick playthrough on these and they work, like from like a technical aspect. I think they're getting to their go no go on Squadron 42. Character work, same thing. Character work, they added some time. Oh no, they didn't. So the reason I had character work on here was you can sort of see how many teams are involved here. Most of the teams are wrapping right here, and then right just shy of the end of the year, the actor feature team is due to wrap. So the actor feature team is probably having to implement all of these other elements in, like mocap and all of that. Mocap is always kind of a beast to manage because you have to go through, and even though you record somebody moving their arm like this, weirdly, mocap can look less realistic than if somebody keyframe animates something. It's weird. It's kind of an uncanny valley thing that sometimes faking it makes it look more realistic. Moonon, charge drain. So charge drain was something that I thought that they'd probably try to sneak into an engineering patch. So what I think will be 319. It's still on target for that. So the end of the year, it's wrapping right around their winter break time. So not, I wouldn't expect it to be a 318 drop. But if they do have an engineering patch for 319, it would definitely be golden to drop in there. So let's see, cutting tier 2, another thing that'll be really important for later tiers of salvage, but also this will start opening up puzzles in the verse. So you'll be able to cut open little panels and doors and stuff like that to access new things. They've shown this off in a few, but work just started on that. They've shown it off in a few ISCs and the vertical slice of Squadron 42 from a few years back. So they've kind of had the tech at least in a rudimentary state for a couple of years now, but this is kind of going through and making sure that it actually works, and the UI and all of it makes sense and is good. So kicking on down, DGS, mesh node and crash recovery, both of these are wrapping. This is all obviously very huge for persistent A streaming and server meshing. This is the replication layer. And let's see, mesh node, yeah, is the server. So both of these are server meshing. Wrapping now, that's a really good sign for PES and server meshing to come. Drake Corsair, this big boy is one that a lot of people have their eyes on. It's the Drake Explorer. So kind of the equivalent of the Connie Aquila or Aquila, but its job, rather than exploring planets or grand vistas on planets, is to explore the cargo bays of other ships. It's a pirate ship. They will not advertise it like that. Wrapping pretty soon. So that one's dropping in 318. Now whether we get it on 318 or if they have a 318-1 right before they go on winter vacation or right after they come back, who knows? But it's due to drop in 318 whenever that might be. Moving on down, dynamic mission system. Let's see if there's anything on this. Nope, just that wrapped. So that one's kind of cool. The dynamic missions are interesting. It's interesting. I think they'll be more interesting when we can trigger them through our actions. Salty Mike had a great point that he wished that there was consequences. Like if you fail Ninetales lockdown, there's no real consequences. It's not like your C2 takes 48 hours longer to reclaim. It's just you lose the mission, you don't get paid. Maybe one day dynamic missions will have a little bit more impact on the verse at large, and then you actually feel like you have incentive to compete in those missions and to actually win them. And then other people, the opposite side, the pirates, have a reason to try to ensure that you don't succeed. That would be nice, but I don't know. We haven't heard a lot about where they plan to go on that. Now it just kind of seems like it's almost random events, which are interesting, but probably won't be where I spend my time when the game goes gold. Ecosystem enhancements just wrapped. This is the one where it kind of sets up climates on moons and planets. So you'll actually have an equatorial band, a tropical band, Arctic band, that kind of thing. Could be kind of cool. I'm wondering if they'll have eyeball planets where they're tidally locked, so one side is like melted water or steam and the other side is all ice. Yeah, be cool. EVA Tier 2. This is one that I think is going to be like a sneaky add to 318 because they finished both EVA Tier 2 and the last one I'll get to is 0G Push Pull. Both of those are necessary for EVA. And I talked about this in my playthrough with Kovalex Gundo, or Gundo Kovalex Station, the investigation mission, which is one of the oldest in the verse. Just EVA is in a really, really bad state right now. So if we can get that for 318, that alone would probably make 318 worth it. So let's see, going down on my notes here, just my notes. Let's see, flak ammunition. So I wanted to bring this up as kind of a point that if you're just kind of looking at it with these blue bars, and I kind of use one or two of these as an example every time I do this, but if it's your first time here, just because you have this blue bar that's really, really, really long and it looks like it's a quarter of the way through, if you look at this one, so the narrative team basically described what flak ammunition was and what it should do here, and then nobody works on it until way over here in Q2 of 2023. The weapon feature team is seriously overloaded right now with tasks, so they're predicting 3 quarters out that they'll have this time blocked off to work on flak ammunition. Do not be surprised if that bounces. Just gets moved out and it moves to complete with 2 weeks work over here, and then they'll just pick it up at some later date. That's what I'm guessing is going to happen there. FPS devices. So this one just sort of unifies the FPS devices so they have similar attachments and things like that. Wrapping this week. FPS radar scanning, another thing that I think could be sort of a sneaky add to 318. If not, it'll definitely be 319. Is FPS radar scanning. This one has been a long time coming. So 93 weeks is almost 2 years of dev time, and there weren't any gaps. It was just solid working all the way through. They're wrapping real soon. This will be one where if you're hiding behind an asteroid or something, the scan will lose you. So if you've got a target on someone and they fly behind an asteroid, you won't have a target on them anymore. So if they change direction, they might be able to go out a different way. Or if somebody is locking on you, same thing. And different scanners might be able to do different things. Signatures will actually matter. So if you're running stealth components, it might actually matter when this drops. But that's pretty cool. Freight elevators. So this is one that we thought was going to drop originally with the cargo refactor. That's what would make the most sense, is you would buy a bunch of cargo at a station and then this elevator would come down and that's where all your cargo would be. Or you'd unload your ship in a hangar and you'd put it on the freight elevator and then you'd run it up to wherever. You'd like hit the button to send it, and that's the point that you'd be able to sell that cargo. You wouldn't just be able to store your ship, go to the kiosk and say, I want to sell 500 units of whatever. You'd have to actually put it on the freight elevator, and then it's off your ship and it's in their inventory, and they can then pay you for it. Anyways, 36 weeks, about probably 75% of the year for them. They've just started work on it. So it's not dropping with the cargo refactor. It'll probably be a 4.0 thing. Frontier clothing, this is a pyro thing. I wouldn't think we'd have frontier clothing with Stanton, but we might. You might see a couple people at the Daymar crash site or place wearing some of these clothes, but expect this one with pyro. But it just wrapped. So scrolling on down, we got hacking tier 0. So this one went from being kind of a simple sort of mini game to, it almost looks, just given the number of teams and the length of time, almost 2 years, that it's almost its own game loop now. Like, you could legit have someone in a group that's a hacker. Kind of cool. Wrapping pretty soon. I don't think hacking would be in 3.18. I don't think that this one would be a sneaky add to 3.18. I think that would have good synergy with engineering gameplay if they do that in 3.19. I've been saying that for a while, that I think this will be released with an engineering patch in 3.19, but we'll see if I'm right. Leave nasty comments down below if I screw that up. Jump points, I believe this one is, where are we? Oh, I didn't have a note on it. I think I was just checking when it's due. Yeah, it's just plugging along. Ladders tier 1 is wrapping kind of soon, but it's kind of in that gray area whether it will actually make it for 3.18. I would think that's kind of late for 3.18. It would probably be a 3.19 ad. But again, this could be one of those things where they kind of give it to us here when it still has more work to be done, just to kind of see what we do with it and how it's performing. And then they just kind of polish and iterate on it. But we'll see. The actor feature team is the one that's working on it. So basically just entering in like the grab points on the ladders and how the actual character will move, and what stimuli they'll move to. We might get this in 3.18. I would expect to get it in 3.19. Moving down, live support tier 0. Let me see if we had anything on here. Yeah, so they didn't add any weeks to this. And this one is wrapping up around Q2, which is kind of where I think that... you see, now if it is March, which is where they had it until pretty recently, that would be kind of my engineering 3.19 game patch, because life support would make sense there. Now it's looking like it would be more a 4.0 thing unless they released it to us before they were actually finished, which they've done. But it's looking like life support will be a 4.0 thing. Lorville Seascape. So this one is going to be a show in CitizenCon this year. So we'll get to see what they're doing. I believe it's only about halfway through. Yeah, it just kind of crossed the halfway mark. I think it's about 60%. We're not getting this in 3.18. This will probably be a 4.0 thing too. It's out past Q1, but we'll at least be able to see what they're doing with it. Should be a really interesting chat. Just being an artist myself, this is kind of one of the ones I'm looking forward to. Just kind of see. Hurston was the first city that we got, so it'll be real cool to kind of see what they're doing with the tech. I would assume just with the interactable buildings that we're going to get a lot more areas we can play and interact on. Hopefully sort of street level activities that we can do that aren't just hallways that are weirdly bent from one train to another. I don't know. Map and system rework. This is kind of going along with the whole scanning thing. The map that we have in game It doesn't work real well. Hasn't worked real well for a while. And one of the reasons they haven't fixed it is because this was on the roadmap. 78 weeks, so like a year and a half, wrapping this week. So again, that might be a sneaky add to 318. MFD rework. So this is the one that I would assume that if the map were an add to 318, that it would have to be on your MFDs. It might not, but this one, obviously the MFD rework has a long ways to go. That's at earliest is going to be a 319 add, but with quarter 2, the MFDs are probably coming with 4.0. Almost certainly coming with 4.0. But I would think the MFD rework would be required prior to the map and radar. Could totally be wrong. That and the mobiGlass, which is down a little bit further. You have to have the mobiGlass in order to have the map and system rework working. MFD would be nice to have, not 100% necessary. So yeah, maybe the MFD doesn't hold it up. There, I went full circle on that. Thank you for joining me on that journey. Mystical Sea, they added a few more weeks to it. Let's see. They only added 5 weeks, so it's just polishing. I was thinking real good chance we get this with the cargo refactor. It's still possible. You can kind of see that its end date is similar to the Corsairs, kind of near the end of the year. They might just hold it off until they're sure how well Persistent A streaming is working and how well the cargo system refactor is working, because as it currently is, the Mystical Sea carries so much cargo, it would break the economy in the game. So Quantum would have to be working for that to come in. mobiGlass rework, so this kind of goes along with my theory that we're going to get that map rework in 318. They just wrapped it, or it's wrapping on Friday. Doesn't mean the sprint won't get more time, but if they are dropping in 318, we might see some big changes to the mobiGlass and everything else. And scanning the map all at once, which would be huge. All of these are things that the community's been asking for a long time. Rolling on down. So the Origin X1, this is another one of those where if you just look at this bar, you're like, man, it's taking them 73 weeks to make a grav bike. No, what happened was you kind of had the concept team. It says vehicle content team. I think what they were doing, they had a concept that was pretty far along, even down to had the animations for getting on and off the thing. I think they basically just dug that out of the dustbin and kind of polished it up a little bit. And then we're coming over here, and the other teams are going to start picking it up. But you can kind of see big gaps in between the team. What I'm thinking is going to happen, and I said this before, I'll bet they're going to try to drop the rework of the 600i right here, the gold standard. They're waiting on teams on this one, so it's going to pop back, and you're going to see like a really long line for this one. They're going to go back and try to release these two together, would be my guess. Just kind of have an Origin week or something. Probably for 4.0, we release the... Yeah, that's just kind of my guess. I couldn't really think of an event that would be Origin specific, so dropping the gold standard in the X1 for the 4.0 release and have a big celebration of we've crossed our next line, look at these new station stuff, Origin X1. So I think it's coming. Now you know. So persistent streaming, server meshing, this is the big one. 124 weeks, a lot of time on it. They still got a little ways to go. This is what's required for 4.0 to work. This right here is the hinge that this game will turn on. If they can't get persistent streaming and server meshing working, this will never be the game that they envisioned in their heads. So fingers crossed they can do it. They're sounding confident, but we'll know by next year. So fingers crossed. Moving on down. Player interaction, I believe they added time on these. Yeah, so they added about 6 weeks to this one. Hints and interaction. So this is just part of kind of the new player experience. They're just trying to clean things up. Locker and inventory. Just kind of trying to clean that one up too. I'm guessing what will happen with this is, as opposed to walking onto a ship and you just get a section when you call up inventory that has like what you're carrying on your person and what's on the ship and what's local, you're going to have to actually walk up to the locker on your ship and open it. So you're not going to be able to be on the bridge and say, oh man, I want this gun, this gun, and this gun, and put them on. You're going to have to go to the locker on the ship where those are physically stored and grab them. I think that's what this is. Don't quote me on that. But that one, maybe a 319 ad. I don't think it makes the cutoff for 318. I think it's a 319 ad. Maybe 4.0. Again, that'll be persistence. So it's tied up in that. It makes sense to drop it at 319. But they might sneak it in 318. Just don't hold your breath. Let's see. Was there something I want to say on this one? Why did I call this one up? Yeah, nothing really to say on this one. I think I just wanted to look and see. This is the one that's the visor and HUD elements. This is one of the things I think could be related to like navigation, like the map and things like that. The only reason those wouldn't drop with 318 is if they're waiting on this tech right here. And you can sort of see that this one is going to be 4.0. Maybe 319. Like if 319 is March-ish, I could see them dropping it in that. I really hope they drop those into 318 though. Prone, tier 1, they're going to stop making crawling around look so janky. You won't be able to do your little break dance thing anymore on the ground, which we've all done. There's no shame in that. This, I think, is going to be a 319 4.0 launch or drop. Shouldn't be too tough. They just need to clean it up. Crawling is a little janky, but it's not terrible. They could just add a little bit more playability to it. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to lay down, like when you're going through caves. It won't always listen to you when you're like, no, I want to lay down and go through that. You have to be in exactly the right spot to make clearance. Who knows? Replication layer entity authority. This is another thing that's related to persistent entity streaming. It feeds, this is kind of like the first step to it. Feeding the information of what's on your server to what's on the shard, although at this stage they've said that there is no difference in this first iteration between shards and servers. A shard is a server, a server is a shard. Eventually servers will break into shards. So there you go. We could go into more, if you want to hear more detail on that. I'll drag in Knight 55. He's little bit more tech savvy than I am. Rescue transport mission. This is one that sounds pretty cool. Let me read this one off. I know that this one's already getting pretty long. So, taking advantage of AI follow behaviors to create missions where players transport customers from one location to another. That is really cool. Along with prototype missions where player must rescue Imperial clients from dangerous situations and escort them to safety. That is amazing because the transportation game loop is similar to cargo, but it requires NPCs to not be stupid. It requires, like, if they're walking in place or if they're standing on chairs and shit like that, they're not going to be following you onto your ship, sitting down in a chair and allowing you to be transported. So NPCs have got to be working. So this might be waiting for 319, but it would be really cool if we got like a whole other loop in 318. I just had a thought that they might have a medium-sized transport ship. Might be one of the unannounced ships. Because we've got the Genesis Starliner, which is enormous. It's, I think size-wise, it's almost the size of the Banu Merchantman, maybe a little bit smaller than that, like 890 jump size, and it's just a passenger liner. But that is a long, long ways off. Something smaller might make sense. No, just spitballing. Resource management. This is also going to have a chat on SitCon next weekend. Again, we're about halfway through it. You can see that's not wrapping until 4.0 of next year, or when I think 4.0 is going to drop sometime between June and September of next year. But they're going to have a chat on it, so we'll get to see what resource management is. That's kind of a big one that snuck up on us. They had it on there, but it wasn't obvious what it was. But nodes on moons and planets and asteroids and stuff like that will actually be producing things, and you'll be able to produce those nodes to do things. It's going to be cool. We'll learn a lot more about that next Saturday. Moving on. RSI links, another one where there's a big gap, but the gap is almost done. We're 3 weeks away from this vehicle entering production. Again, this is kind of the luxury version of the Ursa rover. Cool vehicle, but we've been waiting 7 or 8 years. It's the Connie Felix's vehicle. The sort of the exploration luxury version of the Ursa rover. But they're going to start work on it in about 3 weeks. It's going to go into next year. Maybe a 319 drop would be cool. Again, no downstream teams on this, but RSI is pretty well established, and it's a small ground vehicle. So shouldn't be too complicated, I wouldn't think, but we'll see. Salvage, again, 318 is not going to drop without salvage. Looks right on target. All the things that we've seen in ISC looks like it should be. It looks like it's a little bit further along than cargo refactor, but then again, they haven't talked about cargo refactor. Jared says that they'll talk about it after SitCon, so we'll probably know more then. Sandbox prison activities is another one that's dropping in 318, just wrapped. So even though it's not committed on the roadmap, they've finished it. It's going to make it. Save load for Squadron 42 wrapped. Security behavior, which is another Squadron 42 one, but they can apply it to the PU. Just wrapped. Security post Korea reactivation. There's another one that's in 318, just wrapped, so it's looking good. They haven't moved it to committed, but I'm sure they'll have Evocati test it out to see if it's working before they say it's committed. Ship CPU. So this one's kind of a must-have for engineering gameplay, I would think. Like, your ship CPU is probably going to be the thing that will tell you what's going wrong on your ship, but this is also the thing. You'll always hear people on multi-crew ships talking about blades. The ship CPU is the thing that will let you have blades. So you'll be able to put in a blade and say, this blade controls this typically manned turret. And I think that there's going to be, the cost benefit of that will be, if you install a blade and you make it control a turret, then your ship is not going to be as efficient doing other things. So you won't be able to target or scan as well, but you will have this functional turret without having to have a person in it or an NPC. I don't know. They're definitely going to balance that out. Like, CR has been very adamant that he wants people in those turrets should be the first option that you want to do, that you want to put a person in there. I'm assuming an NPC would be the next best thing, so you're actually paying an NPC to be in there. And then the third thing, like the least option, would be a blade. And the only advantage would be that you don't have to hire an NPC, or you don't have to have another person on your ship. So if you're a misanthrope, blades. It's going to start work in a couple weeks here. Going to go a long time. Oh, actually, no. I totally lied on that. That is going to stretch out. There's no way. So audio worked on it all through here. They've got that for about a 7-week sprint. That's going to be longer than a 7-week sprint. Although they did have the vehicle experience team, so maybe that's just making the actual screen do what the vehicle feature team did. I don't know. Well, I'm guessing what's going to happen is that in 2 weeks, when we get the next roadmap roundup, these guys will just about be starting. I'm betting we see that jump out like another 20 weeks or so, would be my guess. We'll see. If not, then that goes along real nicely with my thought that there's going to be a 319. There's going to be a 319 engineering patch, because ship CPU would be almost a prerequisite for engineering. Moving on. I like going on tangents. So speaking of clothing, Stanton Fashion Clothing just wrapped. This is the actual team that makes it, so not the concept team, the actual team that makes the clothing. I think these are mostly for people in the shops, so you'll kind of notice rather than wearing like a Gundo shirt or something like that, like a generic t-shirt, they'll actually be wearing a uniform, like a McDonald's uniform, basically. Just that. Star Wars. They talked about this on I think the Friday show where they were talking to the teams no, it was ISC where they were talking to the localization team. Star Wars is part of the localization team that's wrapping, where they're dealing with the different languages and stuff like that. This is related to that. Moving on. Third person camera. I know I wanted to talk about that one, but I didn't put a note on there. Again, this one with a huge gap. So you had the vehicle experience team worked on it like a year ago, and the vehicle feature team is picking up on it next year. Again, that's far enough away. Vehicle feature team is a team that is slammed, so that might move. Just the third person camera. CIG sold this game on cool visuals. If you came here, you probably saw screenshots and little videos, and you're like, wow, that's an amazing looking game. I want to play it. So the CIG knows where their bread is buttered, but this one might take a back seat to other priorities for the vehicle feature team. So don't count on that one. I would think that they might be actually physicalizing a camera, like actually have a camera drone that lifts off your ship. Because just having a magical invisible eyeball floating in space for a game that's so obsessed with immersion and fidelity kind of breaks that. They might make concessions. So we're down to the unannounced section, which is always kind of a neat one. I'll put a card up top that kind of talks a little bit about the I kind of did a shallow dive into what I thought all of these unannounced features would be. But I'll just kind of go into it a little bit here since I've talked about it mostly there. But I'll kind of go into it a little bit here since I talked about it mostly there. This one's wrapping. This will be a straight to flyable ship. I think that we're getting this one for 318. So moving on, this one is 71 weeks, but its vehicle concept team is working on this. 71 weeks is a really long time for vehicle concept. Usually not for SitCon, but for the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, IAE, which happens in November, and they have their big anniversary sale. We usually get like one huge ship, like the Kraken or the Polaris, the Pioneer were all dropped during IAE. This is going to be a huge concept. This is a big ship, and they're not wrapping it up in time for IAE, which is a little weird. They do have the vehicle content team, but they might roll it out to us, like just have the JPEGs, a little narrative blurb on what it is, and then the vehicle concept team will kind of keep fleshing it out. And then they'll start building it from the looks of it, because I mean, they've actually got the vehicle content team working on it. Anyways, conjecture on my part. 24 weeks on an unannounced vehicle. This is just a vehicle concept. So yeah, I think I don't really have much to say on that one, just that they kind of started work on it. Hundreds underground facilities. So this one I did want to talk about. It looks like they jumped the time up on this one. Actually, no, it's still sitting at 107. So this one is probably a 4.0 drop. They're probably going to drop it with Pyro. We'll get underground facilities that play nice with the new caves. You have new caves and underground facilities kind of feeding each other, which would be cool. But again, that one's 4.0. It's a little ways out. I think we're probably about 2/3 of the way through it. But again, when you're dealing with sprints this long, they can easily stretch out at the end. So moving on down, vehicle tractor beams. Again, there's another one with a big gap in between the teams. They start work on it. They say Q4. This is around the time that they take their winter break. So I would think that it's actually going to drop down here. The team's just going to kind of look at it and be like, yeah, that time looks about right, or no, we're going to need more time for it. They're just going to kind of do an assessment and see what they've got. You can't have the SRV until vehicle tractor beams come in there. There's a lot of us, myself included, that had a hope that vehicle tractor beams would come with cargo refactor, because that way you have a much easier time moving cargo around. As it is, it looks like it'll drop with 4.0, and the Banu Merchantman will get it in its big cargo base. But at that point, SRV will work, tractor beams on the 315P will work, tractor beams on the, I think the Cutlass had tractor beam originally, I'm not sure if it still does. Caterpillar, a lot of vehicles out there. Once tractor beams come in, that's going to be interesting, for ships anyway. Visor lens rework wrapped a little while ago, so that's going to be cool. We could be getting a lot of really neat UI things in 3.18 if they decide to drop that on us. That'd be nice. Volts, so these 4 actually. It's a pistol. I think one of these might be a shotgun equivalent. One's a sniper rifle, one's an assault rifle, one's a pistol. But they're all kind of wrapping now, so we might get new weapons in 3.18. They haven't talked about it. It's not in the release view here under weapons and items, but they've had the pulse stun for a while. I think that's the pistol, or it might be the rifle. Anyway, they've had one of these done for a while. These two are wrapping right now. Looks pretty good. Should be able to drop it in there if they wanted to. Again, doesn't mean that another team doesn't need to make a sprint on it, like VFX or Sound or something. Xenothreat armor. The only reason I put this one up here is this might indicate that with 3.18, as opposed to doing another round of Ninetales, they might do another round of Xenothreat, kind of move that encounter along a little bit more. Would be kind of cool to see that story advanced a little bit, because right now Xenothreat is basically just keep the javelin safe, or load up the javelin so they can repair it. They fix the javelin, and then you use the javelin to go out and attack the 2 Idrises and the fleet that's coming in, the Xenothreat fleet. Maybe with the Xenothreat armor, we're going to be doing something else. We'll see. 0G push-pull, this last one I want to talk about, is wrapping right now, and that sure seems to indicate that 3.18, we might finally be getting new 0G movement in Star Citizen, which is huge. And hopefully that is dropping in for 3.18, because badly needed for a long time, and it would make those 0G missions so much more enjoyable. It would just open up a lot more gameplay. And that's it, gang. So thanks for sticking through this. I know this was a long one, so if you actually made it to the end, I'll leave you with a little secret that other people won't know. I am debating having a ship giveaway for SitCon, depending on how big the release is. If they do their usual LTI token, like a little vehicle or something like that, I'll probably give one of those away at the end of the stream, but only if you leave a comment on this video. Just kind of, what the hell? Tell me what you think the unannounced ship is going to be right here, because I'm pretty sure this is the one that's going to be dropping for 3.18. So just let me know what you think this is going to be. I'll randomly select one from the answers I get. So typically I think I've got 100 subs now, and maybe 5 people or so watch these. So if you're one of those 5, your odds are really good. So let me know. I think I was saying that I think it's going to be the Argo UFO, and it'll be like a salvage vehicle as opposed to what it was supposed to be, the mole. maybe a passenger vehicle. I don't know. Just let me know what you think. We'll chew it up. I always thought that was the best part of Star Citizen, is the dreaming. So that's all I got for right now. Thanks for hanging out. Leave a like and subscribe if you like this. Leave a comment if you think I should do something else. Got any feedback? I'm always game for feedback, being relatively new to this. So see you next time.